Hey guys, how's it going? Shaquille Majori here. You can call me Shaq for Fansided MMA. And today is a comfy sweater sort of day. And speaking of fashion, my guest here has more, hipness, trendiness, coolness in her fist than I have in my whole body. Ashlee Evans-Smith. How much do you love these cheesy intros that I do for you?
Uh, I guess they're better than your normal boring ones.
you know, Shout out to Sean Evans from Hot Ones. He is very frank in asking his guests what they can do to sort of improve the presentation of the show. Do you have like a slogan or something catchy I might be able to kick things off with, so I don't have to put you through that every time?
Are you asking me for my opinion?
Sure. I mean, you already
Uh,
give me your opinion on tattoos, so why not?
I have no idea. I
Okay.
think
Well,
that's something that you should put a lot of thought into.
fair enough. Yeah, you need something catchy to run with the slogan, right? Luke Thomas. I should probably message Luke Thomas, see if he ever gets back to me, because he's got some great ones. Now, let's get right into it, because it's been sort of a tumultuous few months for you in terms of getting a fight booked. You were supposed to fight Antonina Shevchenko at the Tough 28 finale back in November. You fell through with a knee injury. Then you were supposed to fight Lauren Murphy at this upcoming UFC Phoenix card. She had to pull out. And now you're booked with Andrea Lee, who also had a recent fight fall through with Jesse Rose. Um, what's that been like? 3 months, three different opponents. How are you preparing yourself for these constant changes?
It's actually been like three different opponents in like a month and a half, actually, if
Mm-hmm.
you think about it. Um, but it really hasn't been a big deal because you have to obviously change the game plan because there's different stances. Antonina was southpaw. These other two girls were orthodox. Antonina was Muay Thai, and then these other girls have different backgrounds. But realistically, it's the same thing. You're going to train every discipline. You're going to make sure your cardio is on point. You're going to make sure your weight's on point. You're going to make sure your mental game is on point. So it's just a little tweak here and there, but it's really same day in the office that you always have, with besides minor changes here and there. So and then I don't really mind when an opponent gets hurt. It happens. I got hurt for the first time and had to pull
Yeah.
out of a fight. But yeah, it's been interesting because at one point I didn't know if I was gonna fight, and then I lost an opponent. Am I gonna still have a fight? So it's definitely ever changing and exciting. That's for sure.
So you don't seem to mind the short notice thing. Do you think that might give you an edge in the sense? I know some fighters are very particular about keeping their existing fight going. They put a lot of emphasis on game planning for one person, having a lot of time to pick that apart. Do you think that might give you the edge if, let's say, Andrea Lee comes in here feeling like she hasn't had enough time to prepare for you specifically?
Everybody goes into a fight with a game plan that they've drilled and gone over and over and over in their camp, in hopes that that's what comes second nature in the fight. But as we all know, sometimes people do things differently than what we planned. Sometimes people switch their stances out of nowhere back and
Yeah.
forth, and so it can throw you off. And I think that not only inside the cage, but in life in general, the most successful people are the people that can adapt to change, and the people that adapt to it in the moment are very, very successful. So and that's the kind of thing that will make or break a fight. If you're sticking to the game plan but they're not doing what they were supposed to do, you gotta abandon ship and go back to the drawing board in the moment and choose the right thing to do, which is one of the things that makes up a really good fighter. So I think that if you're so set in your ways, you're going to end up shooting yourself in the foot.
Did you catch Antonina Shevchenko's fight at the Tough 28 finale? Did you end up watching that one?
Of course.
Of course. What were your impressions of her octagon debut?
I mean, she got the win, but I thought she would be more creative and throw different things. I was expecting more leg kicks, more teeps, more elbows, that kind of stuff. But I think, in comparison to what I was expecting out of her, because obviously, sometimes we build up our opponent.
Yeah.
We put them on a pedestal and give them maybe a little extra credit than what they deserve. I thought she actually underwhelmed me compared to what I expected out of her. But it was her debut, a lot of pressure and all that. And she could play it safe, I think, in the sense that her opponent, very good opponent, I forgot, her name, uh, Asian girl, I forget, but that girl was a boxer, and there wasn't a lot of fear of the takedown. She wasn't throwing a lot of kicks. So I thought that Antonina could play it safer, and she did. She didn't have to do as much, but she got the W. She pulled it off.
It's interesting that you mentioned putting your opponent on a pedestal because heading into UFC 232, which you were in attendance for, and we'll get to that. Alexander Gustafsson said one of the mistakes he made, in the biggest mistake he made in the first John Jones fight, was giving John too much credit. Is that a dangerous thing to do, to put your opponent on that pedestal, or in some cases, does it mean you're going to be more prepared than you need to be?
There's never any problem being too prepared.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, people, myself included, have done this before, and you just kind of have to learn the hard way that you can't put your opponent on a pedestal because you become hesitant or gun shy, and you don't really go out there and perform at 100% at your optimum level. And they call it, you kind of get big brothered. You look, oh, I can never be my big brother or my big sister because they're my big sister. And you shouldn't do that because you're just, you're holding yourself back. But it's definitely one of those things that you have to learn in the moment. And if you can learn it from someone else's mistakes, then that's great. But yeah, definitely fighters do that, and it's not something you should do. Along with, you should never underestimate your opponent. So
Yeah.
it's this fine line between giving your opponent enough respect and credit, and knowing that you're both in there to hurt each other, but also believing in yourself 100%, walking in there with absolute confidence, and just knowing you're going to win the fight no matter what.
Is that Antonia Shevchenko fight something you'd like to run back at some point? Would you still like to get that fight?
So I think, when they announced the fight, I was really excited. I love fighting opponents that are going to give me a challenge, and that people are going to look back on my career later and go, "Oof, she never took any easy fights." And that's something that, when it's all said and done, I think that I'll be proud of. And I think she was definitely going to be a challenging fight, and an exciting fight, just like matchup wise. But now that I'm going to fight the number 13 ranked girl, Andrea Lee, and then, I'm thinking to the future. I want to move up in ranks. I'd rather fight Lauren Murphy after Andrea, who I was originally supposed to fight, because she's number 8, and that would make sense for me, and record wise and all that, and moving up in ranks so that I can become closer to the title, and eventually hold the belt. So, but I'm not opposed to fighting Antonina, and especially after watching that fight, even a little more confident than I was going into the fight. So yeah, I'd fight her. Is she my first choice? No.
How's your knee doing? Because the last time we spoke, you had told me off the record you actually gonna go get that looked at after our interview. Obviously, turns out it was worse than you and I both had been hoping for. What happened to your knee exactly, and how are you feeling now?
Yeah, everybody's been asking about it, because I didn't disclose why I pulled out of my fight for a
Yeah.
specific reason. I don't think I needed to, but people are nosy, and I don't know. I mean, some people are like,
I
"Well,
didn't
clearly
break this, right? People found out already that it was your knee.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, just making sure I'm
No.
not throwing you under the bus here.
No, so, but some people are like, oh, don't say what part of your body is injured because maybe your opponent could, target that or whatever. But I don't really care. My knee is healed now. Obviously I'm not going crazy on it because you just never know what can happen. But it was originally a partial tear of the LCL, and it was one of those things where the doctor said you don't need surgery, but you need to rest it. And I asked, how long should I rest it for? And he said, oh, about 4 weeks. And from that day to fight day was 4 weeks.
Ah.
So it was one of those really hard decisions where it was like, okay, you could try and work around this. Your weight cut's going to suck. You're not going to be able to train the disciplines that you want to train because, how can you grapple or do jujitsu with a bum knee, and expect yourself not to get even more hurt. So I had to pull out because, obviously all these girls on this level are tough chicks, and you don't want to have basically one leg, one good leg, one bad leg going into the fight. That is a crappier way to lose, I think, than going in there and giving your all and, just finding out that chick was just, better than you. So that's what happened with that. And, it hurt. It took my wallet took a hit, because,
Yeah.
we kind of line our fights up like, all right, if I take this fight and this fight, I'll be comfortable. And then, if you pinch pennies a little too close, you're kind of hurting. So fortunately that sucked, but happy to have this fight lined up, not just for financial purposes, but, I want to fight. I love fighting. And, I'm back in there already with only, what was it, November, December, January, February, 3 months later. So not too bad.
Moving on to what happened at UFC 232, what was your impression on the Amanda Nunes Cyborg fight? Because a lot of people were counting Amanda Nunes out in that fight. I wouldn't say I thought Amanda was going to win, but I definitely told people you might want to keep your money in your wallets for this one. Cyborg rushed out there. She got clocked. She kept rushing. She got clocked again and again. What was your impression of not just Nunes' performance, but what did Cyborg maybe do wrong in that fight?
I'm not gonna like pick apart either one of these
Mm-hmm.
girls. They're two of the baddest bitches on the planet, and obviously I'm a professional as well, but if she thought that was the right game plan at the time, then I can't really say anything. But maybe that wasn't the game plan, and maybe her emotions got away with her. I don't know. Only Cyborg and her corners will know that. But yeah, I don't like. I'm not gonna pick her apart. She should have done this. She should have done
Yeah.
that. Because look at her. She's had so much success up to this point, and maybe just Amanda's just a higher, different breed of woman, different breed of fighter. So I'll say that I definitely picked Cyborg to win, but I thought it was gonna be maybe a crazy battle, 3 round fight, 5 round fight, whatever, and I was definitely shocked at the outcome. But yeah, I was a little bit on the side of putting Amanda on the back burner when I shouldn't have to.
Um, for a long time, even heading into this fight, the conversation for greatest female fighter of all time has been two camps: Cyborg, Ronda Rousey. Considering Amanda has now beaten both of those fighters, can we say unequivocally that Amanda Nunes is, as of right now, the greatest female mixed martial artist ever?
I mean, how could you not, really?
Yep. What more does she have? Dana White said that after UFC 232, Amanda Nunes is a star. Now, I would argue she should have been a star after she beat Ronda Rousey because of all the attention that was built around that fight. Unfortunately, it seems a lot of the media attention was on Ronda, not so much on Amanda. Do you think Amanda Nunes moving forward is now going to be a major star for the UFC?
I think she already is. It's just how much people, the organization, the media. It's a matter of how much they want to market her and
Yeah.
put her out there. So, I just did an interview with Helen Yee a couple days ago, and she made a comment. She asked me about Amanda's marketability because I guess something happened at the press conference where some guy, ESPN reporter, said that Amanda's not marketable, and something about the UFC being unfortunate that Amanda's not as marketable as somebody else. And I said the same. I'll tell you the same thing I told Helen. It's I think you got to know who you're marketing to. Obviously she's a champion and we can all relate to that, but I think she's a great representation of the LGBTQ
For
community.
sure.
I wish her English was a little bit better, just for her sake, so she
Yeah.
could maybe get her message across a little bit better. But she's a star. She's amazing. I look up to her personally. How could you not? I mean, whether you're a man or a woman or gay or straight, you've got to strive to be that kind of excellence and star level.
As we wrap up here, do you have one moment from UFC 232 that really stood out to you?
Um, I mean, I hate to sound sexist by saying that the girl fights were the most appealing to me.
Fair enough.
But I think it's not that. It's that both of the girl fights that I watched, the Megan Anderson and the Kat Zingano, and then
Yes.
the Cyborg versus Nunes, they both just ended in ways that I would have never even put, 25 cents down on. I had no idea that, Megan would slice Kat's eye with her toe or whatever happened. It
Crazy.
would get stopped in the last like 50 or so, minute or whatever it was. Both fights were fast. Both fights had odd finishes, or not odd, but I guess unexpected. So those were those both fights stood out to me. But overall, I think the whole card, even the fight pass, Curtis Millender and his fight, and then the Uriah Hall fight.
Yeah.
I didn't actually get to see that fight, but I've been hearing that he was taking an ass whooping for 3 rounds and then came back and knocked the guy
About
out.
right.
Which, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that like makes MMA fans for life, because you think you know what's going to happen. Oh, this fight's over, and then all of a sudden you knock out by the other guy. And it was a great card overall. It had everything. It had champions and underdogs and legends. BJ was on the card, and unfortunately, no one wants to see BJ lose. Especially in that way. But how amazing was the situation? In that fight too.
Yeah.
So I can't say one. That was just a really good card.
All around. How far are you from a title shot should you pass Andrea Lee? How many more fights do you think it's going to take you?
I don't make that up. You know what I mean? And I think that if anyone thinks they know that, then they're not very intelligent. There have been situations with fighters where it looked like they were the next in line, and then somebody came in out of nowhere because maybe they were more marketable or whatever, or they had just knocked somebody out in a crazy exciting fashion and they got a lot of hype behind them, so that the UFC then put them in, or the rankings change all the time. So I can definitely not tell you at all how close I am, and I think that if anybody thinks that they can tell you how close they are, then they're silly.
Ashlee, you will keep on whooping ass and collecting checks until that title fight arrives. Ashlee Evans-Smith fights Andrea Lee at UFC Phoenix on February 17th. Ashlee, thank you so much for making the time as always.
No problem. Thanks, guys.